Welcome to the What's the Difference podcast.
I'm Nathan.
And I'm Claire.
Well, today, Claire, the story is about a man. The man is called Aaron Kashat.
Okay.
You will unlikely have ever have heard of him. But this goes back to a number of years ago, and it goes back to a very warm, sticky night in Phoenix, which sounds like something really judgy. Actually, now I've just said that, thinking about it. Oh, we shouldn't really go down that route.
Yeah.
But he's walking down the carpeted hallway of a Marriott hotel. Now, anybody who's been in a Marriott hotel will normally tell you the carpet's red because that's normally that's their colours. So yes,
Oh right,
for anybody who's ever had the opportunity of staying one of those.
Yeah.
And he's trying to move quite casually, but he's quite pumped up on adrenaline and also the methamphetamine that's sort of going through his bloodstream. So he does partake. Just to paint a bit of a picture, he's 6 foot tall, he's blonde, he's got this blonde, close cropped hair. He's wearing like a black jacket and he's got a baseball cap and he's keeping his head down. So, the typical one where they try and hide the face with the brim and everything, so they can't see surveillance cameras.
Yeah.
He then he turns a corner and finds a real quiet stretch of corridor. And what he does, he chooses a door and knocks on it. And then there's no answer.
Okay.
So he pulls out of his pocket what looks like a glasses case or a sunglasses case. And when he opens it, there's just a tangle of wires in there with a little bit of a circuit board in there. And the square 9-volt batteries, the ones that you maybe saw in kid toys or things like that. One of those in there. And on the other end of it, he's got a little plug. And now, on any hotel room, anybody who's used a hotel room in virtually any hotel, you use a card. You either tap it on or you put it into a slot, don't you? So he put it into
several times before it works.
Usually. Normally, or including the 4 or 5 trips down to reception to say it's still not working as well. That's the other one that happens. But this one was the one where it's a bit like a toaster. We have the vertical slot. You push it in. Yes, you push it in from the top, don't you? It goes a bit like that. So he has a little plug. He plugs it underneath. But the thing is he doesn't actually have the key to the room. So underneath this lock, there's a tiny little plug socket, a little hole where you can plug a device in. And he has 2 bare wires that he touches onto the battery, so it makes a circuit. And instantly, the lock lights up, goes green, and the bolt unwires, and the door opens. Now, at that moment, he's obviously a bit shocked in disbelief. And that's what he said in an interview many, many years later, that he was really shocked about this. He pushes open the unlocked door. He walks into the room. Now, he is, as they would say in America, a meth head. So he's full of methamphetamine. He's a bit addled, and he's a bit taken aback in his success in hacking. He's not your.
So he wasn't expecting it to work.
Wasn't expecting anything to work.
Right.
But he went in, and first of all, he went in, laid down on the bed.
Okay. So he's a bit taken aback.
Yeah, his heart's racing because he's
drugs.
And then he sets it up right and goes, "Oh, a steal. It's a really expensive TV looking there, but it's bolted down, so I haven't got tools."
That's no good.
And then on an impulse, he grabs a pile of towels and pillows. He tucks them under his arm, and then he quickly runs out the door or walks out the door because he doesn't want to get spotted. Down the stairwell, out of a side exit, and into his car. He's got a red car, and he's parked outside. And he drives away. Now that sort of real quick summary was the beginning of an epic crime spree. Crime spree, not spee.
Spree, yeah. It's a good word, that.
Yeah. Spree, not spree. I think spee is something else. So moving on, spree. So over the next year, he exploited a very obscure software bug in one of the most common or ultra common hotel locks.
Right.
And he's breaking into hotel after hotel.
Did he get more than just towels?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
I think the way they described it is that he had an all-you-can-eat buffet of serial digital thievery.
Oh dear.
He,
Oh.
so he escalated from stealing TVs to targeting guest luggage, walking out with all the possessions he could find. He's, for those of you that look at America, we need to get a map of America. Some of these things, I keep saying this, it
Yeah.
breaks me from Arizona to Ohio, all the way across to Tennessee. That's quite a wide bit of
Is
America,
it?
to be
Yeah.
fair.
Yeah. I think
I'm
that must
guessing
be a
it is.
wide bit. Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
we should have a map somewhere that we put in here and go,
Yeah.
it's here.
Yeah.
America's big, so it's going to be
It's
a big
big.
distance.
Yeah. It's a
It's
long
going to be a big,
way.
big
Yeah.
distance
Yeah.
anyway. He always seems to be ahead of law enforcement, so he's working hard to do that. But they think that he amassed about $500,000 worth of stolen. So $500,000, that's probably what, about about
400 and
400,000.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, we around about, well, depends on the dollar. It's probably
Yeah.
400,000. I think it's 400,000 today. We'll say 400,000.
Yeah.
That feels safe. I'm not an
But it's
expert
a
in
lot.
financial market. It's a lot of money.
It's a lot.
That's
Yeah.
stolen goods.
Oh, wow.
So what was interesting though is that eventually his lock hacking spree triggered something called this is how they spelt it as well. It was spelled Operation Hotel Cash, and they spelt the S with a dollar sign.
Oh,
Oh, I love
somebody
it.
was proud of themselves, weren't
I could
they?
just see the person that typed that and went, "No, I'm going to delete the S, and it's going to become a dollar sign."
Yeah. Yeah. And they were like
Look,
really chuffed with
look for
themselves. Yeah.
myself. So that became like a huge multi-police operation aimed at
Yeah.
tracking him down. Now, to see it, this was a while back, so just give you an example how far away it was. This was back in June 2013 that this went on. But
Okay.
they estimate that he was responsible for 78 hotel burglaries. He himself then later hinted that he thinks it was actually more than 100.
Oh, but he's just not been caught for them all. He
Yeah,
thinks he's done more. Oh my God.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now,
Wow.
the reality is, don't forget, he was on drugs as well, so he probably doesn't remember some of the ones he's done as
Doesn't
well because it was
yeah.
there. That was just wow.
Yeah.
But what is even more crazy about this is that everybody was mystified, even the police were mystified because all these robberies happened one after another, but there were no sign of forced entries, there was no broken windows, nobody smashed anything. And at first, the hotels were suspecting it was staff that were doing it, which understandably they've got
Yeah.
keys, they've got master keys.
Mhm.
But he said, "What kind of maid steals flat screen TVs from multiple rooms?" or entire suitcases full of guest possessions. That you're not going to get away with that, are you, for very long?
No, not for very
Can you
long.
imagine
Not a
pushing the
whole
trolley down the
suitcase.
hall? Is that your suitcase? No, no, no.
About 4 TVs piled on top.
Yeah, I'm
Yeah.
working for maintenance. We're just pulling it
Yeah.
out there.
Yeah.
But what they say is, but how they described it was everything was gone. They could find no fingerprints. There was no example of no entry. So it was. They almost described it was like a ghost had slipped in
Yeah.
and slipped out.
Yeah.
So just to give you an example of having two different viewpoints to something, because
Mm,
sometimes you can look at something from one point of view because you haven't got all the information.
mm,
The police are looking at it and going, "Well, I just don't understand this." Um, Anybody who'd been working in the world of things like cybersecurity and what they call
mm,
ethical hacking and all these
mm,
worlds wouldn't have actually been that surprised because just weeks before he did this,
mm.
there was a 24-year-old security researcher with I'm loving this American name, by the way. It He's called Cody Brocious. Now
Oh, yeah.
Cody always has I love
Yeah.
I
Very
love the
American,
name
isn't it?
anyway,
Yeah.
but I'm thinking
Yeah.
it sounds like it really is. What he had discovered was that there was a security vulnerability
Hmm.
in the keycard locks sold by a very, very, well, they're a big company.
Mm,
They're called Onity.
hmm.
Now they are a huge, huge lock company. They're massive. They're like the company that people go to for doing
Right.
this. And what he discovered is this bug would likely affected around about 10 million hotel rooms across the
Oh,
United States, and probably a lot
wow.
more than that, and the
Yeah.
world. Well, across the United States and
Yeah.
the world. Sorry, not just the United
And the
States.
world. Yeah.
Because it was really obscure, but it was
Mm,
really, really simple. So on every single lock, if you own a hotel, you'd have yeah, you
Mm.
you use the key, you put your card in.
Yeah. Yeah.
But if you ever need to reprogram that lock, or you need to get
Mm.
in because
Yeah.
someone's in
Somebody's, yeah,
trouble or
needs
something's got
help.
up or something like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
there's a little port underneath that you put the programmer in. The programmer goes in, you
Yeah.
can reprogram the lock. The-
Right.
That lets you reprogram it, but that programmer also can function as a master key. So they are really,
Okay.
really closely guarded by anybody who owns a
Yeah.
hotel. It's kept very
Yeah.
secure because of what you
Yeah.
can do with it. Now, this guy, Brocius, was your atypical hacker. I think if you think about it, he was. I think the best way they described him was he was a round, long-haired, patchy bearded hacker prodigy. So that sort of sums up what in your mind. That's exactly what you're
Yeah.
thinking of, isn't it? Isn't
Yeah.
there?
Yeah.
But he had been hired by a little startup to actually reverse engineer the lock, the Sonity lock, because they were trying to build a competing system. Now, the company never went off the
Um,
ground, never got off the ground, but
mm,
he found something really unexpected. Now, the actual lock itself, it's got cryptography in, it's got a key that says, when you put this in, trigger
mm,
this,
mm.
and that will unlock the key, but it's
Yeah.
completely encrypted. You can't do it. Now, on most systems, if you do that, the actual key will be stored on the programmer. It wouldn't be installed sold anywhere else. But on Unity lock, it's actually stored in the lock. So
Okay.
the way so the way that the article described it, the MRO research described it was, they described it as it's equivalent of having millions of keys hidden under millions of doormats around
Oh,
the world
right.
globally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you didn't have to go looking for the key
It was
because the
in the
key was in the
lock.
lock. The
Right.
key was programmed into the lock already. It was stored there. It was
Yeah.
absolutely stored there. So he spent around about £40 worth
Hmm.
of gear. That's what it took him.
Oh,
Forty
wow.
pounds worth of gear.
Yeah.
He did a little bit of programming on a little bit of board, nothing major,
Yeah.
and he built his own portable programmer. And you insert it into lock, and the moment you insert it into lock, it automatically goes and retrieves the key because it's stored there in the lock's memory,
Yeah.
and then it unlocks the door.
And it unlocks the door. Oh, my goodness.
So I'm like, so basically, and it wasn't even hard. Once you programmed it in, it didn't. All he had to do was plug it in, turn the
Yeah.
power onto the device. It went and did it, and then unlocked it.
You didn't need to, when you see on TV, the hackers are always sitting there with a, key that
Mm.
they're typing away in it. You didn't need to do any of that once it was
Yeah,
built.
yeah, because he'd
Just
built it.
plugged it in.
Yeah, he'd built a little program. You uploaded to
Yeah.
the very small computer board. It's called. If
Yeah.
anybody's a bit geeky, it's called an Arduino, and I'm not even going down what that world is
Ooh.
because that's a whole other separate world.
It's
But
another world. Yeah.
if you're one of the other person like me that's nodding, oh, I know what that is, then that's fine. But but we won't go too far down that
No, let's not.
route. There.
Oh,
So,
wow.
and he said, I'm just amazed. He says it worked. It was
Mm.
like, oh. So he obviously published this to everybody in the world. To look, this is the problem here. There's a problem with this
Yeah.
lock, and this is what's going
Yeah.
on. And he went and spent a lot of time sort of explaining to people. There's a reporter that was did some research. The reporter that wrote some of the article spent time with him, and they went around
Mhm.
New York just testing it out. And they
Oh,
went to three different hotels.
indoors.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
they went to the Waldorf Astoria. They went to a
Hmm.
Holiday Inn
Very
in New
nice.
York, and then they went to I think somewhere else they went to. But everywhere they went, they paid for hotel
Mm.
rooms just so they weren't
Yeah.
breaking in. But they tested it,
Okay. Good to
and
know. Yeah.
but it didn't work on everyone because by that point
Mm.
he'd released it, some people had fixed it. Um,
Okay.
yeah, but it worked on a number of it worked on one of the
Yeah.
hotels. But what is the interesting thing about this is that he told the world. The reporter published the story. He
Hmm.
went to there's a big convention every year in Las Vegas. It's called the it's called the Black Hat Hacker Convention. Now,
Oh, yes. No, I have heard of
if you
it.
ever read
Yeah.
up about this, basically what they say to you is, if you ever attend that convention, turn your phone off,
Yeah.
have it turned off,
Yeah.
do not turn on any electrical device because it will be hacked.
Yeah.
Somebody will have hacked it before you've got for the front door.
Yeah.
It's like if you
Yeah.
don't want to get your data, do not do anything from there. It's renowned for what it's like. he went and spoke about it to this packed room of people. And then he went on and he went further and he published the code that he'd used for this device on his
Oh,
website.
right.
So anybody could build a hotel hacking machine.
Okay.
So basically, the way they look at it is though is that because you're thinking, well, why would you publish it? Why
Yeah.
would you do that?
Yeah.
Yeah,
What?
why
Why?
would you do that? And I said, um, well, it's because at these conferences, because people do say they say, well, look, if you're going to publish that and you publish a security flaw, that could lead to criminality, other sorts
Mm,
of things going on, or people could have some sort of espionage or something potentially
mm,
criminal could happen from this. But the logic they look at is that it's better that the public is informed that this could
mm.
happen rather than not doing it. And obviously, by publishing it, it forces your corporation to fix it because you've now got a critical software issue you've got to go and fix right
You
now
would
before.
hope so.
Yes. Now, things have changed a lot in the years now because what tends to happen a
Right.
lot more now is that they will tell a company we found this and then give them a deadline before
Right.
they go and publish it. Those things have changed as well. Um, but that whole piece of pulling all that bit together um, just showed to me that what happened with Kasha at the beginning, it all makes sense now why he was so surprised because he wasn't anybody special. He
Yeah.
had just gone and bought the parts because they're really cheap to buy. It would have been really easy to install that little bit of code on that device. It doesn't take much to go and do it. And then he built a very basic circuit with a battery and a plug.
So he had just come across this
Yeah,
somewhere.
that's exactly it.
That
So
that wasn't what he did all the time.
no,
No,
not at
he
all.
just came across the instructions
Yeah,
basically.
yeah,
Oh, wow. And went away and built it. And so he thought it was a bit too good to be true,
yeah.
but it was true.
That's exactly it from there. But what's even more fascinating about the whole thing is that they once they published it and they showed
Mm,
everything, they went back to the lock company Onity and said, this is what it is. Now, what
yeah.
Onity didn't do at that moment is patch the security flaw in these millions of
Mm,
vulnerable locks. Actually, in fact, there's never up until the point now it may have changed slightly because I couldn't find anywhere else where it said it's been fixed.
right.
Maybe so that if you find some
Yeah.
research, by all means, tell us. But there was no software patch to fix it, so they haven't gone and go here's an update, go and fix it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, and what they were selling is pretty much because it's if you think this was before the world of having a lot that was connected to the internet or anything else. So they
Mm,
were just selling a digital device with a little computer in that worked and unlocked something,
yeah.
but it
Yeah.
hadn't really thought through the plan of, well, what about people that could hack this? How can we do anything about it? What
Yeah.
can we do from there?
Yeah.
And the reality is that what would need to be is pretty much every lock would either need updating or the board inside it would need updating across every lock. But after he'd revealed all this, and quite long
Mm,
after that, they
mm.
announced that they wouldn't pay for any replacements, and they put the onus
Oh,
on the hotel customers instead. They said and obviously many of the customers refused to shell out the fix because it was going to be what $25, so about £20 a lot to fix it, including cost of labour. So, or others who hadn't spotted it remained completely unaware that they had this issue anyway. So
oh my
instead of what
goodness.
he thought was going to be something
Mm,
that would protect millions of hotel rooms, it
mm.
basically just it created up this rare sort of huge wide opportunity for criminals to go and unlock people's hotel rooms. And people have gone and afterwards demonstrate this that you can still do this. You can
Yeah.
build a device, you can see it working, and you can get a hold of it, try it.
So this weekend, my plans now are to go
Yes.
out and buy a circuit board and some wires and a battery. No, no.
Oh, well, part of me is thinking for the purpose of the
Yeah.
podcast, it'd be
Yeah.
interesting to see whether because I think I still have an Arduino somewhere. I'm just thinking,
Just for
could we,
research
for
purposes.
research purposes, could we actually try this and go, hey, folks, it still works?
Wow. So the bringing us back to the chap at the beginning who reckon he's
Yeah,
done maybe over 100. There's got to be other people.
Yeah, well, what they think is so basically that it's become so notorious now that you'd be very hard to get away with it because
Okay.
of just the fact that people now
Yeah.
know it. Um, so what they said is that lots of people may have done it, but actually it's if you're going to steal something from somewhere, you're
Mm,
gonna probably not going to try and do it in a hotel when you could go smash a car window and steal something out the back of
mm.
someone's car, rather than trying to
Yeah.
creep into a hotel room. And over time, obviously, as hotels have done refurbishments, they've changed their locks, they've changed their
Yeah.
systems. So it's
Yeah.
becoming less and less a possibility. But I love how the whole article ends is that the reality is that out of everyone who probably learnt about that key card hack,
Mm,
so
mm.
only one person more likely had the right mix of desperation, some tech savvy, and
Mm.
the moral flexibility to go and actually use it
Moral
with
flexibility.
credibility.
Yes,
Who
that's
was
a good
who was
good
Aaron
way to
Decker?
describe it. Yeah. And I guess as well, if he was, as you said, a meth head, he wasn't being that
He was,
careful, and
but then
he
if you read
was
about him
just
himself as well, he had gone through a really really bad life.
mm,
He'd um he'd he had there'd been allegations of abuse, sort of physical
mm,
abuse from against him, against his father, against him and others as
mm,
well.
yeah, yeah,
He had been a bit estranged, and then he moved back in with his father. All sort of things went wrong, and he went off the rails and eventually got involved with selling drugs and all those other things like
yeah,
that.
yeah,
So and basically he says, look, his mother said, look, his life was completely went out, like spun out of control. He
yeah,
went into a life of drug use, and as very often happens, sadly, then petty crime to pay for the drug
yeah,
use and everything up from
yeah,
there.
yeah.
Um, but what was interesting is that if you look back at him as a person, the
Mm.
first time he'd gone to prison for making fake IDs and also making false checks using a laser printer. Back in the this shows you how far back it goes. So,
Yeah.
so see, he obviously had learned enough in there, and obviously during prison he did a computer course, so he'd learned a lot of stuff in there. He learned
That's
how to
handy.
build PCs from parts, all those sort of things. Yeah,
Yeah,
he
that's
learned how to
handy.
solder, how to build all these things. He
Oh
then got a
man.
job as like a vehicle technician with well, it's the American version of the AA and that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
there's so many different things that went on and on and on and on and on. But as you read through him as a person, it's a
Mm,
fascinating article actually.
mm.
You see I mean, there's a whole story you could just do a story just about his life and all
Yeah.
the things that happened, but you can see where that whole thing led up to. And literally, that's what he did. He went down to the local electronic shop store, bought
Yeah.
those bits and pieces off there.
Yeah.
He assembled the prototype. It took him a couple of hours to build this,
Oh wow.
and he said he was that. What he said then, he was that shocked by the fact it worked. He just then became obsessed with perfecting it. So basically, by the end of it, he had this whole thing built properly, and it was all disguised inside this little sunglasses case,
Mm.
it was like a sunglass case. This hung around his neck, so he looked like a tourist.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And it has had a little plug. He just plugged it in. He pressed the button. Had a little zipper on
It
the side, and
opened.
that was it.
Wow.
And
Oh
it
my
was,
goodness.
I mean, it was really sophisticated. So he used a an Oakley sunglasses box. He had
Mm.
the cable hidden in one end. The power button was hidden inside the O of the Oakley. It was that
Oh, that's
sophisticated.
clever.
So,
Oh, that's clever. I
yeah.
like that. Yeah. Yeah.
And basically, he had refined it to the point that what he worked out is that I think how they summed it up was that he said the device that he eventually got finalized off, it
Mm.
instantly opened about 80% of the doors that had this vanity lock on.
Yeah.
And what he built was vastly better than the initial prototype that Brochus had
Yes.
actually built. He'd actually sophisticated it and really brought it all the way down.
Yeah. So he put a good bit of effort into this and
Oh
really
no,
thought
no.
about what he was doing. Yeah.
Because he came back with tools now to take the
Yeah.
TVs.
To take the TVs off the wall. Yeah. Yeah. He wasn't daft. Oh wow. I tell you what, that really does make you think, doesn't it? When I mean, you'll have heard me say this many times. I always say, in work,
Yeah.
take nothing for granted. Don't assume a contract's okay. Check it and
Yeah.
all that kind of thing. I don't assume that big companies are doing the right thing.
Absolutely.
Very much so. But absolutely, this applies if you're staying in hotels as well. Don't assume that just because the door's locked, it's going to stay locked.
Yeah.
Yeah. And actually, I read recently, like a life hack type thing, and it just said if you're staying in a hotel, put a chair next to the door.
Yeah.
And not to be you know, over suspicious or anything, but it doesn't hurt just to put the chair that will be next to the desk anyway, pop it next to the door. And it might not stop anyone who's really determined to come in, but at least it would wake you up
Yeah.
if they tried to come in.
That's
And it
exactly it.
makes well, you think as well, sometimes I worry, like you said, you go down to reception 5 or
Yeah.
6 times to get them to make the card work. What if they've programmed it wrong and someone else's card works in your door and they've got the door
Yeah.
wrong and they've got the number wrong? We all do that,
Yeah.
try and get into the wrong or forget what number we're in. Somebody trying to get into the wrong. I know someone that happened to actually. They went into a room
Mhm.
and somebody was already in it.
Oh, I do as well. It's reminding me.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
weird. Yeah,
Yeah, no,
yeah.
it
I know
wasn't to me.
somebody.
It was a guy who
Yeah,
I worked with. It's
yeah.
exactly the same thing he did. Yeah.
Yeah, friends of ours that they're a couple and they went
Mm.
in and there was already a couple in this room.
It's like, hi.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You're like unpacking and you hear the door go. You turn
Yeah.
around, another couple walks in. Yeah, yeah. So it obviously happens.
Yeah.
That's between the two of us. That's two people we know of. So yeah, it does make me think, and I have done that in the last couple of times I've been in a hotel.
Yeah.
Um,
And the thing is, I
to
mean, the whole thing about this story is that it isn't to scare people to death about the fact of
No,
what happens with the hotel room.
yeah,
But I
yeah,
think it's the fact that I think sometimes we just got to be, like, as you said, just a little bit sensible and cautious and wary because just because, like you say, just because the door's locked doesn't mean it's always going to be locked.
mm,
It's like people put stuff in the safe, don't you? You put stuff in the safe
yeah,
and you lock things from
yeah.
there. Now, I also know that that thing. Strange enough that if you ever look at a hotel safe, it has a little port underneath, which you used to reprogram it. So I'm going
Program,
to leave
yeah,
that with everybody else's thought process
yeah.
there.
Yeah, of course, because it's not your safe, is it? It is the hotel safe.
Yeah,
So, you do need to think,
yeah.
oh, that's really interesting.
So what was
Yeah, can
interesting
you
about
can you hear the cogs going
you
round
can
in my head
so,
now? Yeah.
so just an update on what I said earlier as well is there's one bit that I've just there was one bit of research which I just clicked up which I'd mentioned before. It's that honestly did actually come back eventually because the size of the
Okay,
burglary
eventually.
spree. So to
Yeah,
scrap what I said earlier, they did come back and they
yeah.
started offering that like a free fix to the different hotel customers. But
Oh, okay.
yeah,
Yeah, don't
but
sue us
yeah,
on a tip.
yes, yes.
But it took
Oh,
them a while by the sounds of it.
well, um, they did,
Yeah,
but they were doing it one by one to go through it. But then
yeah.
the fix that they offered, it wasn't a recall, it
No,
wasn't a replacement for the flawed lock.
right.
It was a cheap plastic plug that covered the portable programming.
Oh, wow. Okay. I presume a removable plastic plug.
I'm guessing it probably sealed it up and you had to do the lock.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That's it's an interesting question though, isn't it? If you are a company that could be, subject to something like that,
Mm.
have you got a plan of how you're going to respond? I bet
Yeah,
not.
no. I
I bet
mean,
not a lot
yeah,
do.
and it's just, but for me, it's the whole thing, isn't it? If you think about it, that the logic always says, if you've got a safe, you don't store the key next to the safe.
Yeah, yeah.
If
But
you've
that's
got a,
what they were
if
doing
yeah,
basically.
basically you've got electric lock, you store the key. Well, because it
Mm,
makes the whole thing cheaper and simpler because you don't have to have some
yeah,
fancy system that's rotating a key around
yeah,
every single thing. The key just
yeah,
sits there and the lock. And if you ever need to change the key, you put a programmer and redo it. And obviously,
yeah,
this is built from a mind in a world before you ever thought that people could reverse engineer things and
yeah,
go from there. And the reality is, though, is that if you built it to the lowest possible cost to make
yeah,
the maximum amount of profit,
Yeah.
without real thought about what security could be there, then that's a
Yeah.
situation that you could ultimately sort of end in as well. Um, just a summary on actually Kashat himself.
Mm.
Yeah, he went on for many, many, many years. Well, not many years, but it took a little while for them to catch him. But
Mm.
they did finally catch him. But he, it's just, yeah. Um, so basically, what he said was that um, he pled guilty to three of the hotel
Right.
burglaries.
Okay.
A few of the which where they had like they had real solid
Yeah.
evidence and said yes, that
Yeah.
you were there.
Yeah.
Um, at the time of the writing article, he was on a 9 year sentence, so 7.5 years. I think he served 7.5 years of it, so he'd be released probably right now anyway. But what he said to he says he swears to everybody he's done with doing that now. He says
Mm.
because that's where he said how he feels, how he said this, what he described. He says, I have a complicated mix of regret for my thievery,
Mm.
shame for the trauma he caused his victims, and
Oh,
pride for the epic cleverness of his heist. He says, no one took the honesty thing as far as I did.
at least
And he
he's
hopes one
honest.
day to find a job in the security industry or even market his own image.
Mm.
I think, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. You want him on your side, don't you?
Yeah, and he's got two people he wants to work with, but one of them is, so if anybody who's ever, yeah, people may recognize his name, a man called Frank
Hmm.
Abagnale.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Yeah, which
Yeah.
was
Catch me if you can.
famously, yeah, done by Leonardo DiCaprio in Catch Me As You Can.
Mm.
Yeah, exactly from
Yeah.
there. So that is the story of Cody Katat and the hacking of the Onity lock system.
You've
What
mixed
was
the
your,
names up there.
have I?
You said Cody Cashat, wasn't it? Aaron
It is,
Cashat
yes,
and
it's Aaron
Cody.
Katat.
Oh, I thought you were just testing me there to see if I was
No,
paying
no, no,
attention.
exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm going to say, let's go. That was the story of Kashat
Yeah.
and his epic crime spree, but also just
Wow.
the fact of that's what happens when
Mm.
you build things without the ability to be able to update them or build things
Yeah.
without fully putting security in mind as
Yeah.
well. And I think that is, I mean, that's a lesson for all of us. It's the same reason why they always say you don't leave your keys beside your front door. You put them
Yeah.
away out of sight. It's the same reason why they say if you have valuables in your car, you make sure they're hidden, from there.
Hidden. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it's all those,
Absolutely.
it's all the same sense. It's a common sense principle, isn't it?
Yeah.
But obviously, for ourselves, it's just there's some really good tips there that you shared as well of the putting the chair under the door, and or even just putting the chain on the door if you're in the room is the other one as well, isn't it? People do.
Oh, well, they don't always have a chain, do
Yeah,
they?
it's true. Yeah, they don't.
Yeah.
Right.
I've
Yeah,
been in. Yeah,
yeah,
I've been
do
in
they don't?
once without a chain. So,
Yeah.
and an electric lock. So, I just, yeah, and actually in an Airbnb recently, where we found there was a spare key outside. So,
Oh.
so at night we were putting a chair there as well and kind of just under the
Yeah.
doors. So,
And again,
yeah,
I understand why people do it because you want to make it convenient, you want to make it work, but
yeah,
it's just being aware of those things.
yeah, yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's all I've got for you
That
today,
was
Claire.
Well, that was fascinating, and yeah, really made me think. And yeah, you can hear the cogs turning in my brain, can't you? That's brilliant.
I can.
And I hope other people are enjoying this as well. And if you are, please do subscribe so that you get
Yeah.
the latest episodes as soon as they come out. They come out every Wednesday. And do drop us a review and let us know as well. Let us know if you are enjoying this or are we just speaking to the void.
Yes, thank you very much. We really appreciate your time. Goodbye now.
Bye now.